This conference will now be recorded.
This is the Willmar City Council meeting for April 20th, 2020. Roll call.
Mayor Calvin.
Here.
Councilmember Fagerly.
Here.
Meske.
Here.
Schwantes.
Here.
Davis.
Here.
Otto.
Here.
Osmus.
Here.
Plowman.
Here.
Nelson. Nelson.
Here.
9 present, 0 absent.
Okay. As our tradition is to recite the Pledge of Allegiance, so I'd like us to recite the Pledge of Allegiance as well, please. You don't have to unmute your mic unless you choose to. Actually, we probably should all unmute our mics. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America, to the republic which it stands,
one nation,
Under God,
indivisible.
justice for all.
Okay, so I will look for a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Osmus second.
Motion by Fagerly, seconded by Osmus. All in favor, discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Can I do that, Brian, or should I be doing a roll call there?
I would do roll calls every vote.
Roll call. Judy?
Fagerly.
Aye.
Meske.
Aye.
Schwantes.
Aye.
Schwantes. Davis.
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That motion passes. Next, we'll have the consent items. City Clerk Thompson.
Tonight's consent agenda, we have for council's approval, the city council minutes of March 16th, the city council minutes of March 26th, the Willmar Municipal Utilities Board minutes of March 23rd, Willmar Municipal Utilities Board minutes of April 13th, Garris Health Rice Hospital Board minutes of March 11th, Planning Commission minutes of April 15th, application for appointment to the Board of Zoning Appeals for Joshua Munson, accounts payable report for March 12th through April 14th, and for council's acceptance, the building report for the month of March 2020, and council's information, the Invest in Willmar Board minutes of March 4th, 2020.
I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda of the consent items as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Roll call. Discussion.
Mayor, this is Nelson. I would like to pull the Planning Commission meeting minutes of April 15th.
Okay. Anything else? Judy, I'm missing my notepad that I usually have in front of me. Could you hand me one, please? Thank you. With the exception of the item pulled by Councilmember Nelson, is there any other discussion? So we'll move forward with approving everything but that item, the Planning Commission minutes, by roll call.
Councilmember Meske.
Aye.
Schwantes.
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Alvarado,
Aye.
Osmus,
Aye.
Bauman,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That motion passes. Councilmember Nelson, item F, please.
Thank you. I just wanted to reference item number 4 and just seeking clarification. The rezone from R2, R4, there was a statement in there that it was a city initiated rezoning. But my concern is that it would appear, and I get that it's probably city initiated, but it's regarding, I think, being done for one lot, which was referenced in the comments. And that one, I believe, is referencing a single lot that's looking to have a house move on it. So my concern was just whether those lots have actually been listed in the community, or whether realtors were aware that they were for sale, or was this strictly done because we had someone interested? Because I am concerned about the house move, but I'm just concerned about the 3 lots and what's in the best interest of those lots, and whether the community is aware that they were for sale.
Staff, can you help?
Mr. Mayor.
Dr. Ramstead?
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, council members, yes, those lots have been for sale for quite a long time, almost 20 years, and or over 20 years. The marketing of those lots, as I understand, has been ongoing. Whether they're listed with realtors or on a realtor board, I do not know. I do not think they have been. The rezoning is not just for this lot, it is to make those large lots far more marketable so that we can sell them more easily. So it is actually not in relation to this sale, although since they're putting a 3-family there, it will benefit them. But we feel it's going to actually make the properties far more marketable.
Councilmember Nelson, follow-up questions?
I just spoke with some people who are actually in the process of looking to build some homes there, and there are 7 new homes in that area that have been built within the last years, and so it really is more about the house move. I get the rezoning, and that needs to be done. That the house, I think, that is being looked at is being moved in. But it had been told to me that previous staff had shared with some people who had looked at the lots a few years ago, that those lots were being looked at for something else and were not available. And so it's just a question, just a concern that we do what's in the best interest for all of those lots and not just one.
Dr. Ramstead, could you tell us the location of these lots so that those that are watching or listening can know where the location is, please?
Sure, Mr. Mayor and council members. The lots are lot 1 through 3 of Pleasant View 4th Edition, which is right by the Giovanni's Pizza Place. It's on 14th Avenue Southeast. And if there was an intersection there, there's actually like a bend, but it's where 14th Avenue transitions into Pleasant View Drive.
Mayor Calvin?
Go ahead. Councilmember Nelson, go ahead.
Thank you. We, I think, have another action item that the request to put a garden in is on the other end of these 3 lots. And so it's in that same location. It would be off from 15th Street, where 15th Street flats are. And there's 2 Habitat for Humanity houses, and I think 5 single family homes. And there's also a manufactured home that's being moved in there right now. And the lot, I think, that's being referenced in this is right next to that.
I'm sorry. Mr. Mayor?
Dr. Ramstead, go ahead.
Thank you. The lot where the house is being moved in is actually down the street a little bit. I think it's lot, I want to say lot 21, which is a corner lot a little farther down the street. And that they actually are putting in their foundation right now. They're finishing it off. But right in that particular area, there is a kind of a multi-family area back in that area already. So we thought it kind of blended in nicely there, and the commercial is right next door.
Councilmember Nelson.
My question, I think, has been answered with the rezoning. I will defer back to when the house move is discussed. So I'm good for now, and I will enter a motion to approve the Planning Commission minutes for April 15th.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Motion was made by Nelson, seconded by Meske. Councilmember Thompson. I'm sorry. Roll call.
Councilmember Schwantes,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Alvarado,
Aye.
Osmus,
Aye.
Bowman,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Hagerly,
Aye.
Meske.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That motion passes as well. I notice we have Administrator Gramitz, I'm going to go to you here. I notice we have a couple people here. It appears to be for the piece from Councilmember Plowman's agenda, which is the Invest in Willmar piece. Would there be a concern if we went to that so that those people could get on with their life? Would there be a problem with that, Administrator Gramitz?
Mr. Mayor, I guess I would defer that to the city attorney, but personally, I don't think that would be a problem. We've done this in other meetings.
Right.
Mr. Scott, is that good with you?
Yeah, there's no issues from my perspective. Thank you.
Councilmember Plowman, are you agreeable to that? Just take your first item and then we'll go to the Finance Committee and then take the rest of your items, or would you like to stay with the agenda as presented?
We can move on that first Invest in Willmar project if you would like.
Please do.
Okay, then I guess I'll go ahead. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Public Works and Safety Committee was called to order on Wednesday, April 15th at, I believe it was 4 o'clock or slightly thereafter, 4:04. I myself was present along with Councilmember Osmus, Councilmember Alvarado, and Councilmember Nelson. Others present via teleconference were our City Administrator Gramitz, our Public Works Director, Mr. Christensen, Park and Rec Director, Mr. Baumgarten, our Finance Director, Mr. Okins, our Police Chief, Mr. Felt, our Fire Chief, Mr. Hansen, our Public Works Superintendent, Mr. Manzer, and our Engineering Administrative Assistant, Ms. Del Bosque. Also in attendance with us was Jared Vogie with Bolton and Mink, Rachel Skrepet with the Invest in Willmar Committee, along with Shelby from the West Central Tribune. And if I'm missing anybody, I apologize, but I have a long list and it's hard to read on my tiny screen. We called the meeting to order. There was no public comment. So we jumped right into our first item, and that was revolving around the advertisement for bids for the Invest in Willmar Robbins Island project. The City of Willmar has passed a half-cent local option sales tax in the fall of 2018. A Robbins Island subcommittee was developed and a plan was created to redo the roads, parking lots, and water main at Robbins Island. The subcommittee group would also like to include 2 shelter alternates as part of the overall project. Bolton and Mink has been hired to oversee the design of the entire project. The Invest in Willmar Committee met on April 8th, I believe, and the Willmar Park and Rec met on April 15th and have presented the material and is seeking the recommendation on the project. The financial implications of the project are as follows. $3 million was originally approved by the voters for the Robbins Island apportion project. Bolton and Mink was the subsequently selected architect and engineer for the design and implementation of the project. The parking and water main improvements estimated construction costs are approximately $1.9 million. The shelter ad or alternate 1 estimated construction cost of $250,000. The shelter ad alternate number 2 has an estimated construction cost of $225,000. The estimated construction cost overall will be $2.4 million, $2.380,000. The construction contingency of 10% being $238,050, and the A&E portion or the soft cost portion being $357,000 approximately, with a total estimated project cost of $2.9 million, and the actual figure $2,975,625. During the meeting, we had various discussions regarding what this actual motion was going to be. And we discussed the financial implications of the project. And I believe the intent of the motion was to adopt a resolution approving the plans and specifications, which are ready to go, authorizing advertisement for bids by Bolton and Mink for the Invest in Willmar Robbins Island project. And the amendment was made to finance, or to send then the motion that was made to the Finance Committee for the funding options. Therefore, the motion being made, as I understand it, is to adopt the resolution, approve the plans and specs, and authorize advertisement for bids contingent on funding approval or funding review and approval by the Finance Committee, and then returning back to the City Council for approval. And I would enter that motion now.
I will second that motion.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the items for the Robbins Island project. Either Councilmember Nelson or Councilmember Plowman, are we adding an additional step in here? Because the original plan for the Invest in Willmar projects was that they would go through Public Works and then go to the council, but now we're going to send it back to Finance? Did I hear that correctly? Councilmember Plowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, you did hear that correctly. Specifically because we find ourselves in, of course, unprecedented times, and because of a few different issues regarding the sales tax revenue. One being the current state of sales tax revenue and the receipt of those funds and where those fund balances are at. And number 2, future spending decisions and funding decisions. And this can also be verified and run by Councilwoman Nelson regarding finance. But we did discuss the various financial implications, and we understand that our financing options or decisions may be changing in the very near future regarding many of these projects. Now, it also was discussed that we did at one time discuss the fact that the Robbins Island portion of this project may be funded differently than the other portions of the local option sales tax projects. But we have yet to iron out specifically what that looks like. So we thought it best to send to Finance for a more detailed discussion about the finances and those financial implications regarding, do you bond? Do you try do it cash? Do we do it immediately? Do we not? And also within that conversation, Mr. Vogie did also inform us that we did have options in terms of the plans and specifications. The plans and specifications are done and it is ready to bid. We can just go ahead with that process as of right now if we determine what our funding mechanism is, or we can go so far as to approve those plans and specifications and then take a holding pattern if we so choose. If we say want to fund it all cash, if we want to go ahead and try bond, if we want to wait and fund it with cash, there are a few different options, but we figured that taking to finance would be the best way to sort through that and to come back to council with a good, solid recommendation. And then anything beyond that, I would defer to Councilwoman Nelson as chair of our finance committee.
My concern with this is that we're changing what we are again changing what we told the Invest in Willmar group we were going to do. And we are having the conversations with select groups of people. So not the entire council is privy to the information that's being shared. And so I think that we're just setting this up for a disaster. I think we're going to have those discussions. If things are changing that much, the entire council should be included in that conversation, not just a select group of people. This is not the way we set up the Invest in Willmar process that was approved by the council. And if we're changing it, it should be a change that comes from the council, not a council committee that changes it, in my opinion. Additional discussion. Councilmember Plowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With all due respect, we are having the conversation now. And so this is the time to talk about it. But also considering that, I mean, I understand that there was a process in place and there are all kinds of processes in place, but just due to the state of the financial markets and the bond markets and a plethora of other financial unknowns, I'm not in favor of just putting my stamp of approval on
Right.
whatever spending just because we said we were going to do it one way. We do reserve the right to stop and do our due diligence, and I think it's actually our responsibility to do that. But well noted that there was a process in place, and I would like to follow our process in place until a time that we deem it necessary to change that process. However, I would suggest maybe it's time to change that process right now. And that is up to the council, and it is being discussed right now. So the council can do whatever they wish with it. I just thought better safe than sorry. Thank you.
Mayor Calvin.
Councilmember Nelson.
Thank you. I think the difference for me on this one and these conversations, the same conversation regarding funding took place at the Invest in Willmar group. I think the concern and the change with this is that this project from day one has always been stated that we were going to pay for it with cash from the local option sales tax projects. And so that has changed. We do not have cash to pay for this project. And so to bring this project forward is requiring a change in what we were told from the beginning. And this project was going to be done first because we anticipated that the actual local option sales tax dollars would be able to pay for this. We do not have those dollars available. And so it needs to go, I think, to look at, can we afford to do bonding? And the other question is, do we have local option sales tax dollars that can actually support the bond if we decide to do that bonding? So it felt like a wise decision, I think, from my standpoint. In fact, even probably the fastest way to reach a decision on this, to look at, is there a way to do this? Is there a way for the city to bond, to move forward with the Robbins Island task force, or with the Robbins Island project, without encumbering the city to make the payments on that bond? And so that's, I think, the question was, originally we had talked about approving the plans and specs. And so I guess I feel it's comfortable and we can get it back at the next meeting with the options for funding to see whether we can move forward with this project this year, or as Mr. Gramitz has said too, to establish our priorities. I think we have to look at our streets and we have to look at our bonding to see what we are comfortable doing. And so I guess that was the thought process with sending it back to finance, to try to find a way to resolve this as quickly as possible.
Councilmember Swantis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think the whole issue of financing for this project is only a small piece of the finance puzzle. And I personally would like to see us as a full council have a conversation about expected revenues, how we are going to handle expenses as a whole for the entire 2020 year to reevaluate it. I think that this is just a small piece of that. I think that all council members should be a part of that conversation and a part of that decision. And so I would prefer that we actually approve the plans and specifications tonight, and so that this group knows that their work has been appreciated, and we would like to move forward with what they have decided upon, and we can then wait to do the bidding until we have a plan in place for how we're going to handle all of our finances. There's a whole lot bigger conversation to have, and I think having one piece of it is not the right way to do it.
Councilmember Meske.
I agree with everything Councilmember Schwantes just said. I think that's probably the way to go. I know at the steering committee, we got bogged down again with how it's going to be financed. And that I think would have been quite a deviation from what we had planned. The COVID thing has put us in a different situation, and the revenues are not coming in like we had planned. So I think we should probably look at the entire thing and take a much higher approach to it. So I would be in favor of, again, acknowledging the plan, because I think it was well thought out and deserves to move. But we even told the folks there, it's like the financing is a council decision. I'm okay with moving it to finance if that's what we choose to do, because it's a council decision. But I don't want to set a precedent, because every one of these things is going to have to be moved to committee, because it's the same position. We're still in the same financial situation. So I would support that kind of idea that Councilmember Schwantes just mentioned.
Mayor Calvin,
Councilmember Nelson.
that truly was the intent with this. And I think the other thing is that, our city administrator has been giving us information, and that at our next finance committee meeting, we're talking about the structure of that. I would welcome a way to bring those conversations forward to the city council, and not just have a piecemeal approach with doing one piece today and one piece tomorrow. And so the intent of changing this motion was to try to do the very thing that Councilmember Schwantes was stating and Councilmember Meske was stating, was to go back and look at the options to approve the plans and specifications, but not to put it out for bid until we knew what our options were for the financing. So if this motion is making people uncomfortable, I think that the finance committee, and we've been asking for that information and receiving it, and I think our city administrator also, there just needs to be an avenue for us to bring those discussions forward. And I think that is best served coming through the finance back to the city council. And I would hope that we can accomplish that in the next meeting, or have a special work session or something to simply talk about the finances that are coming up here. So the intent was not to separate this out, but to find a way to move forward and not strictly look at one piece at a time. And I think that is the goal of the finance director. I think it's a goal of our city administrator, and it's what we've been trying to work forward, I think, with the finance committee. So I'll quit with that.
Councilmember Meske.
Is it possible just to have an all council finance meeting to just address this issue?
Certainly the council could do that. I'm not hearing, I'm hearing two separate things, the motion and the second, and then the conversation that you, Councilmember Meske, and Councilmember Schwantes had. They don't seem to be parallel to me, unless I'm missing something. I know that Administrator Graham had said at one time that it would be good to have all of this stuff in front of the full council, so that we don't have to rehash everything. I know that when this was talked about at Public Works, that the conversation went 40 minutes to an hour, and now we're 25 minutes into this discussion. And so we're basically probably rehashing what you guys already once rehashed. So, but I think that this is a big enough issue that we need to really clearly look at the impacts of it. And, you know, I'm in support of what Councilmember Meske said, of we all get together and hash this out. I think the issue at hand is, you know, and I think maybe if the motioner and seconder were favorable to approve the plans and specs and then have a full council meeting on the financing, I think that would be achievable, but that probably is a substantial change to the original motion. So additional comments, Councilman Palmer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, the original intent of the motion was to approve the plans and specs, and also then there'd be the contingency. An amendment was made with the finance portion contingency that it had to go back to finance to determine the funding mechanism, because our originally intended funding mechanism has changed. So that was a part of the motion. The only thing that differs, and according to what I heard being discussed and what I heard you say, is that the discussion of turning the next finance meeting into a full council meeting. I think that's a great idea. If our finance chair is open to doing that, I think that's a great idea. But the original intent was to approve the plans and specs so that it is ready to go, and the only piece that we have to do is determine the funding mechanism. And I'll stop with that.
Mayor Calvin.
Councilmember Nelson.
Thank you. I have no issue with what Councilmember Plowman stated. That really is accomplishing the same thing that we talked about. We have a finance meeting scheduled for Thursday, so there is no way that I don't think that we can turn that into a full finance committee meeting at that time. And so I also would question with our city administrator if he feels that we are ready to have that full conversation also. And so, or to our finance director, because I think that has to happen as it relates to streets and as it relates to our local option sales tax projects. So I think the concern that was stated at the meeting is that we don't go out for bids without having any kind of plan with how we're going to pay for that. So approving the plans and specifications is one thing. Finding a financing mechanism is another. And so I can support the change in that if we can come up with a plan to meet to talk about the financing options. I don't know if our city administrator has any comments on that.
Administrator Ramitz.
Mr. Mayor and city council members, I guess I would prefer to have the meeting where all council members are present and we can hash all of the options out and talk about our projects and lay the groundwork so we have a game plan, whether we divide the bond issue into two pieces and, you know, one this year and one next year, just what it's going to look like. Because I think going through it once would be preferable than to go through the committee, come back and, you know, spend another hour here at the city council, getting together, talking about it one time, laying the plan, you know, for the future and then moving on, seems like the best plan for me. So.
Councilmember Alvarado. And Councilmember Osmus, I can't see you because you're behind all my screens, so you're going to have to give me some type of a high sign if you wish to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What makes this a difficult situation with the financing right now is that we're in a quarantine phase, and we don't know what's going to happen with the rest of the state in 2 weeks. We don't know how Governor Walz is going to proceed. So we're kind of in a tough situation as to knowing what to do financially. But I agree moving forward with the approving of the plans and the specification and authorization and advertisements for bids. I believe that's a good way to go, turning it back over to finance, let them talk about it, think about the future a little bit, and then coming back with some ideas as to how to proceed from there. Thank you.
Okay, so the motion on the table is to approve plans and specs and refer it back to finance for their discussion and bringing it back. So I've got 3 council members that are saying they would like to approve the plans and specs tonight and then come back as a full council to discuss the financing. And I've got, I believe, the motioner and the seconder, one of which might be in agreement, the other, I'm not sure at this point. Councilmember Fagerly.
So yeah, I just wanted clarifications. We're just gonna approve the plans and specs. So this committee is done working them and then we'll figure out financing.
No, this is just one piece of the Invest in Willmar piece, and that's the part that James Miller and Rachel Skretvet and Jared Vogie have been working with staff on developing. So this is just one piece of it.
Yeah,
So,
the Robbins Island project.
correct, right.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's more pieces to that, yeah.
okay.
Can I speak, Mr. Mayor?
Certainly, but I can't see you, so yes, go ahead and speak, Councilmember Osmus.
I'm probably bouncing off of Councilmember Fagerly a little bit, but right now the motion is on the table for the Robbins Island project. If without, I mean, obviously we don't know the financing situation, but if we wanted to look at not doing the shelters, which was one of the options, and just doing the roads, where does that come into play? If we were going to do pieces of each one of the local option sales tax projects.
I'll defer to Councilmember Plowman and follow it up with City Administrator Gromitz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, actually, I was going to defer either to City Administrator Gromitz or I believe Mr. Vogie is the most familiar out of anybody else with how their particular bidding process is going to go, and they would be the ones facilitating that. So because they would actually be writing up the bid structure with those alternates, he would probably be the most knowledgeable source that we have here with us. Otherwise, if Mr. Baumgarn, I don't know if he's on the line tonight either, either of those would be qualified to answer that specifically.
I'll go to City Administrator Gromitz, followed by Mr. Vogie.
All right, Mr. Mayor and the city council members, the original project estimate was $3 million. And I think what's basically happened is they identified the project, the part of the project they want to do. Number one is the roadway, the parking lots, all of the things except the shelters. So they want to get project number one done for sure. But if project number one comes in at $3 million, there's no money for the shelters. Okay. So if project number one comes in at the estimated dollar figure of, $2 million, then we can look at adding the shelters. But if it comes in at $2.5 million, we can maybe only add one shelter instead of two. So that's what the alternates are for. We want to get the road and parking lot done for sure. And if there's enough money, we want to do both shelters. But if there's not enough money, we may only end up doing one shelter. So that you put the shelters in as alternates so that when you bid them, you'll find out whether or not you're underneath the $3 million cap in the end. If you're over, then you're going to have to maybe drop off one of the shelters. It's just, kind of a add up the parts to see if you're still under budget.
Mr. Vogie.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor Council. City Administrator Grummins is exactly right. That was the intent of in the Robbins Island Subcommittee as we developed the process and worked toward the full plans as you've seen them in your packet. the estimate was below the 3 million. And one of the goals of I believe also the mayor's task force, as it was originally contemplated, was some of these shelters. The project has been set up for that opportunity if the bids come in favorably. It doesn't obligate the council to move forward with the shelters. Simply what it is it's obtaining the pricing, and then as a reminder, these bids come back before the council for ultimate approval as well. So,
Mayor Calvin?
Rob Baumgartner, Rob, you know who you are. If you have comments, just unmute your mic so I know you want to say something. Otherwise, I'll assume that Brian covered what you wanted to say. Councilmember Nelson.
Thank you, Mayor Calvin. I think that was the other light that went on when we found out that there is not cash to do this, is that if we are going to have to do bonding for Robbins Island, then perhaps looking at the full 3 million versus the 2 million, and what would those payments look like different? Is the city prepared to, if the revenues are not there to support those bonds, we have to back those bonds with tax dollars. And so, you know, I know there are ways to look at different payment options. And so that was the hope, I think, with going back to finance, was for finance and our city administrator to show us the different options that might be available to do bonding for Robbins Island. So I don't see that as a negative but maybe bringing forth some additional options with how this might be done, whether it's done this year or next year. The revenues in the local option sales tax probably can't support the bonding. And so that's a question, but we need to understand what that bonding might look like and what the payment options might be. And so that is part of the conversation that's been going on to try to figure out how's the best way to deal with this, and to give the council the best options to look at how can we do this, or can we do it. And so that, you know, how we do this, if we only want to approve the plans and specifications and come up with way for the full council to approve this, that's fine, or to receive all that information, that's fine. But I think we just need access to all of the information to make an informed decision.
I'm going to Councilmember Meske and then City Attorney Scott. Would that be a substantial change to the motion? So the motion would have to be rescinded, or because the council as a whole would be discussing the financing, it could remain paramount to the question. Councilmember Meske.
I would like to defer to hear what the city attorney has to say, because that was going to be where I was going to go, whether I needed to make a friendly amendment or if we have to do a new motion.
Attorney Scott.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. It sounds to me like a friendly amendment would be needed to bring this back to the full council, if that was the question.
Councilmember Meske, you heard the answer there.
Yeah, it was how you want to frame it. I just think we talked about the plan at the steering committee as well, and talked about the different pieces that are in it. They are based on financing, but the plan is the plan, and approving the plan is what it is. That's what they're asking us to do. I think that's what we're supposed to be doing, and then we'll figure out how much the financing can work and how much of the project we can finance. And so if the motion is currently that we're returning it to finance to talk about options, I would modify that to say, as a friendly amendment, that we have a full council meeting. It doesn't have to be at the next finance meeting. I think a friendly amendment would be at the one after that, so you can get all of the options together. But this evening that we do approve the plan that came from the steering committee.
Is there a second to the friendly amendment?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by both Osmus and Schwantes. Mr. Miller, did you have a comment to make?
Well, I actually just wanted to ask for a point of clarification. Going back to when this committee was put into place, I guess the conversation from at the time Administrator Holland was that all funding options were on the table. I guess I'm just a little curious as to when it was changed and when that was communicated back to the committee that we would be working on a cash basis only for this if the revenues would come in from the local option sales tax. And I guess I just don't remember that being discussed. So I'm a little curious when that part of it changed and if that was ever clarified back to our group. I guess I don't remember that happening, and maybe Rachel can chime in on that if she wants, or possibly Rob. But I think that's one thing to note, that discussion point was never brought up with us. I understand the revenue situations given the COVID-19 situation, but just curious as to when that part of the conversation changed.
Okay, we have a motion on the table that has been seconded for a friendly amendment to have the discussion on financing on this project come back to the full council. Discussion, Councilmember Nelson.
No, I do not have a comment. I am fine with that.
Roll call.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Alvarado,
Aye.
Asmus,
Aye.
Plowman,
Aye. Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Hagerly,
Aye.
Maskey,
Aye.
Montes.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
So the friendly amendment passes. So the motion on the table currently would be to approve the plans and specs as presented by the Invest in Willmar Robbins Island Subcommittee. I paraphrase there. That Mr. Vogie, could you just give a 30-second description on the shelter concept?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Mayor, Council. So the shelter concept essentially consists of the first shelter, which would be closest to the Trunk Highway 71. We're referring to that as open shelter, and Rob and Rachel, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that is open shelter number 1. The concept with that is a 20 by 40 structure with a 16-foot overhang, which would allow the option for picnic tables to be placed outside underneath the overhang. That shelter is located, if difficult here without the map, but the map is in your packet and that shelter location is identified. That shelter has been identified due to its proximity to the beach and others. The second shelter is what's referred to as the hilltop shelter. That's also near a parking area. The concept would be, in collaboration with Ram Construction, who is actually building the Four Seasons shelter. So we talked to them and identified similar materials to the Four Seasons shelter, the same roof color, etc. And then the similar interior materials, which were selected due to their ease of maintenance for the staff that will be maintaining them. So ultimately, they'll have the same character as the Four Seasons shelter, however smaller in size. And those were the priority shelters that were identified by the subcommittee, and that is why you see them as alternates to the overall plan.
Okay, so I'm looking for new information here. So we have had a substantial discussion in regards to the project and the willingness to move the project forward for plans and specs. Understanding financing will come back to us at another time. Additional discussion paramount to the revised motion on the table. Seeing and hearing none, roll call.
Councilmember Alvarado,
Aye.
Asmus,
Aye.
Plowman,
Aye.
Nelson,
Sorry. Aye.
Bagerly,
Aye.
Maskey,
Aye.
Montes,
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
Thank you. I also want to give a shout out to Mrs. Gredvit and also Mr. Miller and Vogie for their work on this. I really do appreciate it. So Councilmember Plowman, with your permission, we'll move back to Councilmember Nelson's Finance Committee, if that's okay with you.
That is
Councilmember
perfectly
Nelson.
fine with me, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Nelson.
Thank you. The Finance Committee met on Thursday, April 9th at 5:15 via teleconference. Those present were Councilmember Nelson, Fagerly, Plowman, and Osmus. Also others on the teleconference was Councilmember Davis, Councilmember Alvarado, City Administrator Gramitz, Finance Director Okens, City Clerk Thompson, City Planner Swedberg, and Baker Tilly Consultant Doug Green, and the West Central Tribune reporter Shelby Linrood. We did call the meeting to order at 5:15. There were no public comments. However, we did receive conversation and have a discussion with Doug Green at that time. Those comments are incorporated into the minutes under project financing, timing, and continuance. And so I will reference those when we get to that point. We had 3 action items, and the first action item was to approve a resolution regarding the statutory municipal liability coverage limits. And staff presented the details of our current statutory tort liability limits to the extent of the coverage purchased from the League of Minnesota Cities Insurance Trust. A decision must be made annually whether to waive those limits. If the city does not waive the statutory tort limits, an individual claimant would be able to recover no more than $500,000 on any claim to which the statutory tort limits apply. The total which all claimants would be able to recover in a single occurrence to which statutory tort limits apply would be limited to $1,500,000. If the city waives the statutory tort limits and purchases excess liability coverage, a single claimant would be potentially able to recover an amount up to the limit of the coverage purchased. The total which all claimants would be able to recover for a single occurrence to which the statutory tort limits apply would also be limited to the amount of the coverage purchased regardless of the number of claimants. Staff was recommending not to waive the statutory tort limits at this time, which is what we have done every year. It was moved by Councilmember Osmus and seconded by Councilmember Plowman to recommend a resolution stating that the city would not waive the statutory tort limits established at $500 per claimant and $1,500,000 per occurrence. And I will enter that motion now.
I'll second that. Osmus?
Motion made by Nelson, seconded by Osmus. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Osmus,
Aye.
Plowman,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Fagerly,
Aye.
Eskey,
Aye.
Fontes,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That motion passes, that resolution passes. Councilmember Nelson.
Thank you, Mayor Calvin. The next action item was a reapportionment of special assessments. Staff explained that the property located at 908 and 910 15th Street Southwest has been used for residential purposes and is zoned R2. The Pathrath minor subdivision was reviewed and approved on February 19th, 2020 by the Planning Commission and on March 2nd, 2020 by the City Council. The subdivision triggered the need for a reapportionment as there are existing special assessments on the original parcel for the 15th Street Southwest Street project completed in 2019. The existing special assessments are $3,989.25, which will be split between the 2 parcels being created. And those amounts are listed there and will continue to be paid in yearly increments. It was moved and seconded to approve the reapportionment of the special assessments for the Pathrath subdivision as requested, and I will enter that motion now.
Second by Plowman.
Motion made and seconded to approve the reassessment of, or reappropriate, what Audrey said, or what Councilmember Nelson said. It's hard without my screen up, I'm sorry. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Plowman,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Bagerly,
Aye.
Eskey,
Aye.
Montes,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Alvarado,
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That resolution passes as well. Councilmember Nelson.
Thank you. Our third action item was the 1017 media contract, and staff explained that the Willmar Main Street program became a part of the city in 2018. At that time, planner Sarah Swedberg was tasked with the coordination of the program. As the WMS program has continued to grow, the WMS board has found it appropriate to use a portion of the budget to contract with 1017 Media to help with WMS website updates, social media content creation, and posts. The 1017 Media team has the ability to more efficiently and effectively complete this work on a professional level, and it takes this responsibility off of the planner so that other projects can be prioritized. This expense was anticipated and included in the approved Willmar Main Street budget by both WMS board and the city council. The scope of the work agreed upon will cost Willmar Main Street $1,250 per month. It was moved and seconded to enter into the 1017 media agreement, and I will enter that motion now.
Second by Plowman.
Motion made and seconded to enter into an agreement with 10 Media for Main Street Willmar. Discussion. Roll call. I'm sorry, Councilmember Bagerly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When it was asked by Sarah if the city staff could do this, and she said they had done it the first year or 2 years ago. And this bid is for $75 an hour. The city staff charged $150 an hour. So I'm still shaking my head on that one, but this is a good deal.
Additional. Roll call.
Councilmember Nelson,
Aye.
Bagerly,
Aye.
Eskey,
Aye.
Montes,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Alvarado,
Aye.
Osmus,
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That motion passes as well. Councilmember Nelson.
Thank you, Mayor Calvin. I'll move on to the discussion items. The first one was the first quarter investment cash report. And staff reviewed the investments for the first quarter of 2020, noting that the called investments have ramped up due to the recent economic changes resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic. Strategy has been to put the funds from these called investments into money markets, not only to keep things as liquid as possible, but also because money market rates have temporarily been better than specific short-term investments. It is anticipated that this may change. Another strategy has been to purchase new investments for the terms no longer than 12 to 24 months, as forecasts are predicting rates may increase after about a year. I don't know if anyone has any questions on that. I would defer to our Finance Director Okens or City Administrator Gramitz if they wish to comment on that portion. Hearing none, I will move on to the next discussion item, which was our first quarter general fund operating report. And the staff reviewed the status of revenues and expenditures in both the general fund and the wastewater treatment fund as of March 31st. It was noted that property tax collections are 36% of general operating revenues. There is an uncertainty in intergovernmental revenue, particularly local government aid, given the anticipated downturn of revenues at the state. Service charges will be short because of the rec programs being canceled. Fines and forfeits will be short due to traffic and impounding of vehicles being down. Interest will probably be greatly reduced as interest rates are down drastically. Other financing sources and the municipal utility transfers should be in status quo at this juncture, but may be revisited because of the state of the economy. Under expenditures, personal services constitutes 72% of the general fund operating costs. Transfer out, which include capital projects as well as the payment subsidy for the airport, total $1.7 million. There are a number of projects that have not been started yet. Of those, there are two major projects of $315,000 at Swanson Field Lights and $485,000, which was allocated for the auditorium. Again, I will defer to if there's any comments that either either staff would like to make at this time. Hearing none, I will go on to the local option sales tax update. Staff reviewed the status of the local option sales tax receipts to date. This new tax was effective October 1st, 2019. There are concerns about amounts collected to date having been down dramatically, and that given the current economic downturn, those numbers may be smaller yet. This reduction in anticipated revenues should be considered when going forward with contracting and bonding for the various local option sales tax projects. Staff noted that there was an ordinance change to address state reciprocity rules and to allow state to collect the city's vehicle excise tax. Staff will continue to research with the state how this reciprocity may cause a delay in collection of sales taxes that should be received from other states. It was noted that the initial revenues are down partially due to vendors getting their systems up and running with the new sales tax rates. Historically, information shows that this issue does correct itself over time, either by vendors correcting their returns or when they are audited by state. The county noted they also had this issue when they first started up their sales tax program, and they saw corrections in it as well. Using the current monthly amounts received, it was projected that there would be enough cash received within about a year for all the design phase plans and specifications, which would not include the bidding stage. Councilmember Nelson stated that the Invest in Willmar meeting that it was hoped to pay for the Robbins Island project with cash. In light of these projections, that may not be the case. Consequently, we will need to finance the Robbins Island project instead. There may have been and continue to be ongoing discussion between staff and Baker Tilly regarding the sales tax revenue projections versus the cost projections for the designed local option sales tax projects. Staff will report to the council on these discussions as they occur. It was noted that the impact of the shelter-in-place order, specifically the state authorized delay for vendors to remit sales tax until May 20, as it pertains to the local option sales tax revenues, will not be recognized until July at the earliest. I don't know if staff have any comments on that item either. Hearing none, I will move on to the project financing, timing, and continuance. Staff raised concerns about proceeding with various capital projects given the economic downturn resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic, particularly because sales tax revenue is down and the delay in receiving property taxes. Doug Green of Baker Tilly addressed the committee regarding the recent volatility in the bond market. He said the city is in good shape to get financing if needed, and that the 25 to 30 million bonds were not a problem. Councilmember Nelson stated that the lost bonding will have lost sales revenue pledged to make those bond payments and is concerned about how that would affect bonding for those projects. Mr. Green said that that would not be a problem since they would be backed by general obligation bonds. Subsequently, if the sales tax revenues are not what was anticipated to cover the debt service, property tax revenue can be utilized to offset the difference. Finance Director Okens stated that the ability to borrow the funds comes into play, as well as the ability to make the payments. Questions were raised as to whether the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic may also affect funding for the 2019-2020 should read street projects. Staff stated that the capital improvement program had initially been approved for approximately $2 million for accessible type work and $1 million for the work involving state aid funds for 2019. However, proposals have been presented to the council of around $6 million that would require bonding for the additional $1.7 million. Staff explained to the committee that the decisions would need to be made whether or not to proceed. And I lost my page, I'm sorry. Proceed with projects requiring special assessments for property owners given the economic downturn we are experiencing. And I'll finish the minutes and then ask if there's any comments. Future agenda item, future finance committee meetings will include city council information requests submitted and Caris Health Rice Memorial Communication and the Willmar Municipal Utilities Audit of 2019 and 2020 improvement projects. There was no other business to come before the committee. I will enter a motion to accept the minutes now.
Osmus, so moved.
Motion been made and seconded. A motion by Nelson, seconded by Osmus. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Fagerly,
Aye.
Maskey,
Aye.
Wantis,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Alvarado,
Aye.
Osmus,
Aye.
Bauman,
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That motion passes. Next is the community development report. Councilmember Fagerly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Community Development Committee met on Monday, April 13th with a go-to meeting at 5:20 because someone couldn't log on in time. That was me. But on the line was myself, Vicki Davis, Sean Muskie, and Kathy Schwantes. Also on the line was Dr. Ramstead, Director of Planning and Development, Sarah Swedberg, City Planner, City Administrator Brian Gramitz, City Attorney Robert Scott, Linda Mathiasen with 2040 Housing Task Force, and Shelby Lindrud from the West Central Tribune. First item was Renaissance Zone Ordinance, establishing the zone and exempting development within the zone from certain fees. This was for information only. Staff presented the Renaissance District Ordinance, which will establish the zone as a zoning overlay in the Central Business District adjacent areas. Additional incentives will be adopted in phases. The ordinance will create the overlay district in the zoning ordinance and will establish free building permits, free water and sewer access charges, and free sign permits within the zone. Linda Mathiasen presented the 2040 Housing Task Force letter of support for the zone and offered assistance to promote the Renaissance Zone. This was for information only. The ordinance went to the Planning Commission on Wednesday, April 15, and will be heard later in this meeting. Item 3, or if there's any questions. Not ordinance, or item number 3, ordinance relaxing parking enforcements in a Renaissance Zone. Staff explained that the police department currently enforces parking time limits Monday through Saturday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. They also enforce on all holidays except holidays when the retail businesses are closed. Staff recommends that the parking enforcement should be Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., with no enforcement on weekends and holidays. There was some discussion and some concerns, but Attorney Scott stated that the parking ordinance could be changed and/or modified at any time by the council if issues arise. So there was a motion made and a second to relax the parking enforcement in the Renaissance Zone and set a public hearing for May 4th, 2020, and I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion was made by Councilmember Fagerly, seconded by Councilmember Meske. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Meske,
Aye.
Schwantes,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Alvarado,
Aye.
Osmus,
Aye.
Bauman,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That motion passes. Councilmember Fagerly.
All right, thank you. Item 4, land sale to Sharon Tyne. There's an offer to purchase a lot, and it is Lot 1, Block 1, Pleasant View, 4th Edition, in the city of Willmar. It'd be off of 14th Avenue Southeast. The offer is $19,000 plus $1,000 for a special assessment for a total of $20,000. This property was received by the city in 1986 for delinquent taxes. Total cost for this lot is $1.06 per square foot. Commercial property, industrial park is $1.25, so it's a good price. Purchaser intends on moving a house they own from South First Street in Willmar to this site, which will become a triplex. Rezoning will need to be done by the Planning Commission, and it needs to be zoned from R2 to R4. If the Planning Commission denies the rezoning, this offer would be voided. There was a motion and second to approve the sale of this residential lot to Sharon Tyne for $20,000. And I will introduce this motion.
Second.
Motion was made by Councilmember Fagerly, seconded by Councilmember Meske. Discussion. Councilmember Fagerly.
If this goes through, I guess there has to be a public hearing May 4th.
Right. Correct. Yeah. In order to sell land, it takes a public hearing. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll add that to the motion.
No.
Mr. Mayor, I would recommend.
I'm going back to Councilmember Fagerly. He's making an amendment to the motion.
No.
Okay, a lot of people have their mics on. Shut your mic off if you're not speaking, please. Councilmember Fagerly.
All right, so the motion I wanted to make, where did it go? Okay. There was a motion made and seconded to approve the residential lot sale to Sharon Tyne for $20,000. I will introduce this motion and set a public hearing for May 4th, 2020.
Okay, City Attorney, is the Councilmember Meske, are you willing to second that?
Yes, I can do that. That's fine. But I think the city attorney has a comment.
Correct. City Attorney Scott.
Correct, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I would recommend there be two actions. One would be to approve the sale and approve the purchase agreement for the sale. The second would be to introduce the ordinance authorizing the sale and set the public hearing for May 4th.
So the motioner and seconder are agreeable to the recommendation of the city attorney, correct?
Yes.
Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Schwantes,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Alvarado,
Aye.
Osmus,
Aye.
Bauman,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Fagerly,
Aye.
Meske.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That motion passes. Councilmember Fagerly, you want to introduce the next one, then setting the public hearing, please?
I'll make a motion to set the public hearing for the land sale for May 4th.
Second.
Councilmember Fagerly makes a motion, seconded by Councilmember Meske. City Attorney Scott, does that give us enough time for the filing that's required?
Mr. Mayor, I have to admit, I'm not sure what filing you're referencing. For the publication deadline?
Correct.
I would defer to the city clerk. I would think it would. It's a simple ordinance.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I'm sorry. Mr.
City-
Mayor, members of the council. Yes, I will get it published tomorrow. So it will be in the paper on Saturday. And that would give us our 10-day notice before the May 4th meeting.
Okay, the only reason I bring that up is that there was one time we tried to sell property, we hadn't done proper notification, so we had to redo it. So that was the only concern I had. Additional discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Alvarado,
Aye.
Osmus,
Aye.
Spellman, Nelson.
Aye.
Aye, if that's not working.
I saw your picture, so. Fagerly,
Aye.
Meske,
Aye.
Wantis.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That motion resolution passes as well. Councilmember Fagerly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 5, emergency ordinance exempting temporary signs from the sign ordinance requirements during local emergency. Per discussion regarding the COVID-19 emergency measures last week, the city administrator decided the city of Willmar should exempt temporary signs from the sign ordinance requirements during this local emergency. This is a way to help the local businesses during the COVID-19 crisis. City attorney explained the expiration would be the date the city council rescinds the local emergency declaration, or 61 days, whichever comes first. Under the city charter, no emergency ordinance can last longer than 60 days unless the council were to extend or adopt another emergency ordinance. Motion was made and seconded to adopt the emergency ordinance exempting temporary signs from the sign ordinance requirements during this local emergency. And I will make that motion.
Second.
Motion made by Fagerly, seconded by Meske. Discussion. Councilmember City Administrator Gramis, do you want to talk at all about the conversation on the leadership meeting today about the sign stuff or not?
Mr. Mayor and City Council, I'd be more than happy to. The meeting held this actually at noon today, while I think the rest of you are in the Board of Equalization, but it focused on communicating with the business people in a better fashion so that the businesses know what is coming down from the feds, the state, and the city. But one item that they really keyed in on was the signage, so that citizens, customers can understand who's open and who is not. And that really kind of took root. And I believe that'll be probably the first project that this group will embark on. A side note, the second one is just informing everybody in the community, either through the newspaper, radio, or our city media, of where people can get help, whether it's through Candido County or through the EDC or wherever. So many topics were discussed, and the signage was one that we had already taken a step forward on, as you see here tonight. And it's just to help out the retail commercial businesses, to let everybody know that they are still open for business. And then something that I had been asked early on and decided it was not government's role, but the chamber or that task force can decide if, let's say they're all bright green, so everybody can see them and they understand that all the bright green signs are they're open for business, so coordinating so that there's some uniformity. They'll be taking that on because I don't know that it's government's role to tell people what color signs they should have. But collectively, if they do that, I think that would be a good idea. And I anticipate that they'll be actually producing signs rather rapidly and handing them out.
Thank you, Administrator Gromitz. Additional discussion. Roll call. I'm sorry. Councilmember Nelson, did you have a comment? Roll call.
Councilmember Alvarado. Osmus,
Aye.
Plowman, Nelson,
Aye.
Eagerly,
Aye.
Maskey,
Aye.
Fontes,
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That motion passes as well. Councilmember Fagerly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. After a few updates from staff on current projects, the committee adjourned at 7 p.m. And if there's no questions, I'll make a motion to file the minutes.
Second.
Motion made by Councilmember Fagerly, seconded by Councilmember Maskey to file the minutes. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Osmus,
Aye.
Plowman,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Eagerly,
Aye.
Maskey,
Aye.
Fontes,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That motion passes as well. Councilmember Plowman for the Public Works Committee meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before I proceed, I want to make sure that everybody can hear me okay, because I got logged off of my phone.
Yes, we can hear you just fine.
Okay, thank you. The Public Works and Safety Committee met on the 15th. I already listed the date and the time and all of those in attendance, and we already went over the first project, which was the Robbins Island. So I'll jump to item number 3, which was advertisement for bids, project number 1704 and 1904, and this requires a resolution. The City of Willmar requested the service of Bolton and Mink to complete plans and specifications for construction of the pedestrian path along Lakeland Drive Southeast from Molina Ave to Trunk Highway 12, and then along Trunk Highway 12 from Lakeland Drive Southeast to 23rd Street Southeast. The plans and specifications for the above mentioned project have been completed and are ready for bid and construction. The project has an estimated cost of $530,401, including construction, engineering, and contingencies. $210,000 in federal funds are allocated for the project, with a city obligation of $320,401, which is included in the 2020 street and other improvements CIP budget. The city must begin spending the federal funds by September 2020 in order to continue to be eligible for those funds being allocated for this project. So I will make a motion to adopt a resolution approving the plans and specifications and authorizing advertisement for bids by Bolton and Mink for project 1704-1904 Lakeland to Trunk Highway 12 Federal Path. I'll enter that now.
Osmus, second.
Motion been made and seconded. Motion by Plowman, seconded by Osmus. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Plowman,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Hagerly,
Aye.
Maskey,
Aye.
Fontes,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That resolution passes. Councilmember Plowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The next project that we have on board is project 1902-B, plan and specification approval for the East Side Drainage Improvement Project. The city of Willmar requested the service of Bolton and Mink to complete plans and specifications for construction of project 1902B, the East Side Drainage Improvements. The plans and specifications for the above mentioned project are completed and ready for bid and construction. This phase of the project installs additional storm drains for outfall capacity and redirects existing catch basins into new outfall, which will further reduce storm flow into private facilities and areas. This phase is part of a larger regional project which will aid in the alleviation of occasional stormwater flooding for residents in that area of town. The project is to be paid out of local option sales tax funds. Phase 1 construction was completed by Crow River Construction in the amount of $52,321. Phase 2 is estimated at $222,500. Engineering for the project cost is $110,060. Contingencies will be $32,482 for a total project amount of $417,363. We are adopting a resolution approving the plans and specifications and authorizing the advertisement for bids by Bolton and Mink for project 1902B, the East Side Drainage Improvements Project. I'll enter that motion now.
Nelson, second.
Motion made and seconded. Motion by Plowman, seconded by Nelson. Discussion. This is a question for staff. I'm not sure who might know the answer. Did we not pay for the $110,000 of engineering last year? And would we then be reimbursing ourselves out of local option sales tax dollars? Or is my memory not correct? Somebody help me with that?
Mayor, members of the council, I'm not sure we paid for it, but we calculated all of it as part of an overall project.
So Mr. Mayor, correctly, we did calculate, but we did not. I'm sorry, Mr. Okins.
Of the 110,000, 60,000 of that was paid out of the general operating because it occurred prior to the sales tax. The remaining amount is paid from local option sales tax.
Okay, that was my memory, and that's thank you for confirming that. Additional discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Nelson.
Sorry, aye.
Aye. Bagerly.
Aye.
Maskey.
Aye.
Montes.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Alvarado. Osmus.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That resolution passes. Mr. Okins, I've got a follow-up question to you. So my understanding is that the 60,000 was paid for under our general operating budget. The additional dollars will come out of local option sales tax, or will we reimburse ourselves for that 60,000 as well?
No, the 60,000 will not be reimbursed because those costs were incurred prior to the passage of the sales tax law. The general operating storm sewer water will cover that.
Okay, I thought that's what you'd said, but then my mind was going to different areas, so thank you very much. Councilmember Plowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moving on, it's a little bit out of order from what was in our meeting, but we do have our safety department statistics attached to this packet. You can probably see them, both from our fire department as well as our police department. This would be a good time to jump in and ask questions if you have any. I know that there wasn't anything unusual that stuck out from the fire segment, and the other things that stuck out from the police department statistics Obviously, traffic stops are way down because they're allocating their resources towards a lot of public education type things. And also we do know that with everybody in the stay-at-home orders, with everybody at home, there are obviously more calls for home-related type public assistance. But if anybody has questions, now would be the appropriate time to ask either our either chief or our city administrator. Okay, doesn't look like anybody has any, so I'll go ahead and move on. Our next item would be regarding our Humane Society. In 2016, the city of Willmar entered into a yearly payment agreement with the Humane Society for the care, boarding, food, water, daily exercise, and if necessary, euthanasia and cremation of impounded animals. Prior to that time, the city was charged on a per animal basis. The Humane Society Board has submitted fees for consideration regarding the pending agreement. And this was also noted that since 2016, this yearly cost has been the same. It has been $38,800 annually, and that is the suggested contractual amount again for year 2020. So this will be the fourth or fifth year that we've had the same fee. And then they are noting also that in the year 2021, we will be seeing a 10% increase. So that's our first increase in that 4 to 5 year span. The amount again is $38,800 annually. Next year's amount will be $42,680. It was motioned and seconded to go ahead and approve that agreement, and I will enter that motion now.
Osmus, second.
Motion is made by Plowman, seconded by Osmus. Discussion. I'm going to go back to Finance Director Okens. Have we completed our payments to them for the build that when they built that facility? And if we did, do you remember what year that was?
I would have to check on that, Mr. Mayor. I do not recall that there are any payments that we've paid recently, so I can check on that and send an email out to the council.
Thank you. Additional discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Fagerly,
Aye.
Maskey,
Aye.
Schwantes,
Aye.
Davis. Aye. Alvarado,
Aye.
Osmus,
Aye.
Wellman,
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That resolution passes as well. Councilmember Plowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Next item is a squad car purchase for 2020. The Willmar Police Department had 3 vehicles approved for purchase in the 2020 vehicle CIP. Pricing was done through the state bid, also Mills Auto and Atwater Ford. The Atwater Ford bid came in the lowest of the 3 for the base price of the vehicle with all of the same options. The Willmar Police Department vehicle CIP total also includes the needed accessories, modifications, and installation of those not included in the base vehicle price. Example is the light bars, the prisoner transport seats, radars, lighting, sirens, all that good stuff. The Willmar Police Department has requested 4 replacement vehicles in 2019 and 2020, but approved for 3 replacements. The vehicle production has lagged, so we just received the 2019 replacement vehicles and are awaiting upfitting before they can actually be put into service. We expect a lengthy delay in receiving our 2020 vehicles, so it's paramount that we try to stay on top of this right now with our action tonight. Current patrol vehicles set for replacement are nearing 20,000 miles over their targeted replacement mileage. Should be replaced as soon as possible to try to avoid excessive mechanics fees and whatnot. The financial implications of this purchase, we're looking at $33,977 per vehicle times 3, total vehicle cost of $101,933.97. And I am going to enter a motion to authorize the purchase of those 3 patrol vehicles through Atwater Ford.
Osmus, second.
Motion made by Plowman, seconded by Osmus to approve the purchase of vehicles from Atwater Ford. Discussion. Councilmember Maskey,
No, I'm just getting ready to vote.
roll call.
Councilmember Maskey,
Aye.
Schwantes, Schwantes,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Alvarado,
Aye.
Osmus,
Aye.
Plowman,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That resolution passes, and that motion passes. Councilmember Plowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our next item is a Public Works garage heating and air conditioning project. The 2020 capital outlay program includes $60,000 for the replacement of HVAC units throughout the facility and for the addition of air conditioning into the mechanic shop. The remainder of the budgeted funds will be reserved for the heating system in a garage at a later date. The Public Works garage is scheduled for the replacement of their heating and the addition of air conditioning for the mechanic shop in accordance with the 2020 CIP, capital outlay program. The new heating units proposed are radiant heat systems and will be more efficient than the existing radiant and tube heater systems. The air conditioning is a 5-ton system and will be placed on the north side of the building. 2 quotes were received for the project, and one from Chapel Central and one from Bulletproof Mechanical. And I should note that they did change this. They scaled this down just a little bit in light of the financial situation that we find ourselves in, just to allow for a little bit more flexibility in the future. That was noted by the committee, and we definitely appreciate them being willing and able to do that. So this is only partial of this project, and our superintendent and director did note that the other portion of that can come back later at a later date, and we will have funds to work with. So this amount, the lowest bid, was in the amount of $22,975 from Bulletproof Mechanical Services. I will make a motion approving the agreement with Bulletproof Mechanical for the Public Works Garage Mechanic Shop HVAC project in the amount of $22,975.
Seconded by Alvarado.
Motion made by Plowman, seconded by Alvarado. Discussion. Roll call. I'm sorry, Councilmember Fagerly, do you have a comment?
I do. Just, do we have air conditioning there in the mechanic shop now?
I would defer that to either our Public Works Director or if our Public Works Superintendent is on the call.
Mr. Christensen.
Currently, Mayor, members of the council, we do not have air conditioning in that shop.
Okay, so the reason to have it now is for what reason?
Minimize sweat. It gets pretty warm back there when 2 guys in multiple vehicles.
Sweat on the employees or on the floor?
Yes. Both.
Okay, because most of the shops I know, they just raise their doors and they have fans going, so.
And we do have that.
Okay, and there's still an issue?
Well, the fans we have maybe aren't as efficient as some of the other shops I've been in. They're fairly small, but and I'm just getting a notice from Gary that we've also been trying to use a window unit that's less than efficient.
Yeah, that's in the break room, isn't it?
No, this is just the mechanic shop.
In the mechanics? Okay. All right. Thank you.
Additional discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Schwantes,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Alvarado,
Aye.
Osmus,
Aye.
Bowman,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Fagerly,
Aye.
Maskey.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That resolution passes. Councilmember Palmer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hopefully this one rings a little recently with everybody because we were made privy to a pretty cool Facebook video of the new boat ramp, or I'm sorry, not the boat ramp, the fishing pier being put out at the Robbins Island area. This is the consideration of a cooperative agreement with the DNR. The state has provided 2 cooperative agreements for approval by the city, one for the repair of the boat ramp planks at the Willmar Lake and one for the installation of a new fishing pier on Foot Lake. The ramp will be built in conjunction with the state and city staff with the new planks provided by the DNR. The new fishing pier is also provided by the DNR and will be installed near the Four Seasons shelter by state staff. The existing pier was removed from Rao Park and will be rebuilt by staff and put back into place next year. Financial impact, city will be responsible for providing several yards of aggregate material for the boat ramp and to provide staff and equipment as feasible to assist with the installation of the ramp and the fishing pier. So this is just covering that cooperative agreement with the DNR. So we are looking to adopt a resolution approving the cooperative agreements with the state of Minnesota, DNR, and for the boat ramp at the Willmar Lake and fishing pier at Foot Lake. I will enter that motion at this time.
Nelson, second.
Motion by Plowman, seconded by Nelson for the resolution. Discussion. Councilmember Maskey.
So let me understand that we will be operating 2 fishing piers next year.
Mayor, members of the council, actually there'll be 3. The one that was removed is the one that's lesser used off the end of Rao Park, not the one along the Highway 41.
Additional discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Alvarado,
Aye.
Asmus,
Aye.
Bowman,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Fagerly,
Aye.
Maskey,
Aye.
Schwantes.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That resolution passes. Councilmember Plowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This next item is a consideration of cooperative agreement with Candido County. This is in regards to the new apartment complex going up on the outskirts of town, but just within city limits, North County Road 5. As most of you know or have maybe seen, they're advertising on Facebook currently in other locations regarding that those units being entered up here real soon. So we're looking forward to that. Candido County has improvements scheduled for State Aid Highway 5 from 7th Avenue to County Road 24. The improvements include adding turn lanes for traffic safety due to the anticipated influx of traffic created by unique construction apartment complex. This complex is set to complete construction in 4 years and will include a total of 288 units. And I will note, because this was asked of me prior to the meeting, the entire complex, when we say 4 years, we're talking about the entire complex, not the particular building that they're working on now. That will be done much, much sooner than 4 years. So we just want to make that clear for the public. They're working and working hard, and they worked through some crazy weather conditions this winter, but they're doing well. With regards to this motion, the county agrees to finance with its own funds all items excluding the cost of city construction items provided in Exhibit A of the agreement. If anybody has questions, they can direct those to our Public Works Director, but we anticipate full recompensation of a majority of the costs. We are seeking to adopt a resolution approving the cooperative construction agreement with Candido County for County Road 5 improvements. I'll enter that as a motion now.
Nelson, second.
Motion been made by Plowman, seconded by Nelson for improvements in County Road 5 shared agreement with Candido County. Discussion. Councilmember Maskey.
Not about the financing, the agreement. The one building that is there, is that one of the 4? Because I remember we were talking about 4 buildings, or is that 2 of the 4?
believe that's one of the 4, and then there'll also be a clubhouse as well.
So we'll see at least a quarter of the 288 units will be occupied probably fairly soon. So we'll already see some additional traffic. So this is a good step forward.
Dr. Ramsden, am I correct on that statement?
Mr. Mayor, council members, yes, you are.
Additional comments or questions? Roll call.
Councilmember Alvarado,
Aye.
Osmus,
Aye.
Bauman,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Bagerly,
Aye.
Maskey,
Aye.
Schwantes,
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That resolution passes. Councilmember Plowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll try buzz through this one so that you guys can hear somebody else talk for a while. This next item is the 2020 improvements project. This is the next step in moving forward on our streets projects. The City Council ordered the 2020 street improvements project at the improvement hearing held on March 17th of this year. Bids were open on April 20th, and the amount needed to perform the necessary improvements is now known. Staff is preparing the accessible footage and the amount for each affected lot. Costs for the improvements must be declared, and the preparation of an assessment roll ordered in accordance with the requirements of Chapter 429, State of Minnesota statutes. Affected property owners must be notified of their assessments, their assessment amount, and the May 18th, 2020 date of the hearing. And I'm going to list them off now. By project 2001-A reconstruction, that's 9th Street Southeast to Willmar Avenue Southeast to Pleasant Drive Southeast. 2001-B reconstruct, that's 6th Street Northeast to 26th Avenue Northeast to the dead end. 23rd Avenue Northeast to 6th Street Northeast to Country Club Drive Northeast. And 2003-A is an overlay, and that is 1st Street, 19th Avenue Southwest to westbound Minnesota Trunk Highway 23 ramps. The financial impact for these projects, 2001-A will be financed by assessments, local funds, bond proceeds, MUC, and wastewater treatment funds. 2001-B will be financed through assessments, local funds, bond proceeds, MUC, and wastewater treatment funds. And 2003-A will be financed through assessments and state aid. So that is a state aid project. We are looking to adopt a resolution declaring the cost to be assessed, ordering preparation of the assessment roll, and calling for the hearing on the assessments on May 18th, 2020 at 7:01 p.m. For projects number 2001-A, 2001-B, and 2003-A for the 2020 street and other improvements. I will enter that motion now.
Second by Osmus.
Motion made by Plowman, seconded by Osmus for the street improvement cost to be assessed. Discussion. Mr. Gramitz or Mr. Christensen, did our numbers come in above or below engineers' estimates? I know you haven't worked them all out yet, but Mr. Christensen.
Actually, Mr. Mayor, we have worked them out since we converted everything to electronic bidding. We have a lot less to do as far as redoing all the work. Less math errors or no math errors. And so the 4 projects we bid today collectively came in about or significantly less than our estimates, about 25%.
Perfect. Thank you. Additional discussion or questions? Roll call.
Councilmember Osmus,
Aye.
Bauman,
Aye.
Aye.
Bagerly,
Aye.
Maskey,
Aye.
Schwantes,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Alvarado. 8 ayes, 0 nays.
That resolution passes. Councilmember Plowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That was the end of our meeting. I move to file the minutes.
Osmus, second.
Motion made by Plowman, seconded by Osmus to file the minutes of Public Works. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Plowman,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Bagerly,
Aye.
Maskey,
Aye.
Montes,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Alvarado,
Aye.
Osmus,
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That motion passes. Next, we'll have a discussion in regards to the introduction of Renaissance Zone ordinance. Dr. Ramstead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. Staff seeks a motion to introduce the ordinance to establish the Renaissance Zone Overlay District and provide parking and fee waiver development incentives for a public hearing on May 4th this year, 2020. The ordinance establishes the zoning district referred to as the Renaissance Zone. It also includes parking and fee waiver development incentives, some of which include parking, building permit fees, land use application fees, sign permit fees, sewer access charges, and water access charges would all be free in this district as of the adoption of this ordinance. The creation of the zoning district itself does not incur any ongoing costs. The cost to the city in relation to the incentives, just to give you some relationships, the Renaissance Zone last year only represented about 6% of all building permits across the city, and we had roughly $62 to $63 million worth of building permits last year, or construction last year. I think a good benchmark is the Quick Trip that's going on downtown right now. It's the first private sector development in decades. We have had public sector and hospital permits in the downtown district, but this is the first in a very long time. It's roughly $2 million, and that would represent about a $14,000 permit. Sac and Whack would also be roughly in that same area. So for a $2 million, $2.2 million project, those are the sorts of incentives that you are looking at potentially giving to entice commercial, business, housing, a variety, even parking ramps, a variety of proposals that hopefully these will draw into the Renaissance Zone and the business district itself. With that, I open it up for any questions.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the recommendation of staff.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion was made by Fagerly, seconded by Meskey. I just want to commend staff on your forward thinking here. I think this is an excellent project. I know there's a lot of buzz on the street about it, and thank you for your hard work. Additional comments? Roll call.
Councilmember Nelson,
Aye.
Bagerly,
Aye.
Maskey,
Aye.
Montes,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Alvarado,
Aye.
Osmus,
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That motion passes. Dr. Ramstead, you have the next item as well.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. Staff seeks a motion to introduce the ordinance to rezone a lot 1s through 3 in the Pleasant View 4th Edition from R2 to R4 for a public hearing on May 4th, 2020. The properties of interest are described again as Lot 1 through 3, Block 1, Pleasant View 4th Edition, of the city of Willmar. The city acquired these parcels quite a while ago, about 23 years ago, around 1986, in a tax forfeiture. In 2008, the city replatted these lots. They have not sold. They're very large lots, actually. And we seek to rezone them so that we can expand potential buyers. We also think it's a good transition between the single-family housing that is to the east of there and the commercial to the west, and there is some multifamily to the north. The rezoning, as I mentioned previously, does not have anything to do with the sale. It's more of a broader look at how we might be able to transition some desperately needed multifamily in here, kind of moderate to low multifamily in this area. Any questions?
Looking for a motion and a second.
I would make a motion to introduce the ordinance to rezone certain property from R2, 1 and 2 family residential to R4, medium density multifamily residential for a public hearing on May 4th, 2020.
Motion been made by Alvarado, seconded by Fagerly. Councilmember Meske. Or did you wave me off?
No comment. I was just waving at a little plowman. One of the enticements of doing meetings in this fashion.
Thank you for pointing that out. We're glad you're joining us. You're learning how Dad does his civic duty. Additional discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Fagerly,
Aye.
Miskey,
Aye.
Montes,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Alvarado,
Aye.
Osmus,
Aye.
Plowman,
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That motion passes as well. Next, we have a consideration of a lease for community garden, and that will be taken by the Public Works Director, Mr. Christensen.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Let me get to that item on the agenda here so that I can tell you exactly what it says. Effectively, this is a lease of an unused right-of-way area that it's at the end of the north end of 15th Street where it intersects 14th Avenue. So near the area what we talked about earlier tonight, that was habitat houses and some of the property that's being currently constructed. A group approached us a while back to put a community garden on a city lot. What we've done instead is create that at a right-of-way in case a lot gets requested for purchase. It's an unused portion of right-of-way, and I think that will be a better location for them. It also allowed the Public Works Department to have an excuse to clean up some of that area, some down trees and some underbrush and things of that nature. The lease agreement's been drafted by Attorney Scott, and the work that the Public Works will do probably in the future is probably add some topsoil for them. But that is in front of you, and I just went off of that page again. That is in front of you for approval tonight is the lease agreement.
So the recommendation of staff is that we approve a lease with Menu to do a community garden in that area. I'm looking for a motion and a second.
Move to approve.
I missed who that was from. Who made the motion? Raise your hand.
Plowman.
Motion by Plowman, seconded by Osmus. Mr. Gramitz.
Mr. Mayor and City Council, just to clarify, this would not be what we considered a standard community garden. This is, I think the term is used, a sharing garden. This is going to be somebody will plant, grow produce, and then make it available to whomever wishes to go in and harvest that when it's ripe and or ready to be picked. So community garden invokes the vision of maybe 40 by 40 squares that everybody tends their own garden. This is not necessarily that, but it's still a community garden, but it's just a different concept. And it's more of a, as I said, people will tend to the garden, will weed it, will water it. And then when product is ready to be consumed, people in the neighborhood can come and access the produce. It's an interesting concept.
Thank you. I think this is coming out of Vision 2040, right?
Correct.
Okay, I'm looking for a motion in a second. Oh, I'm sorry, I already have that. Right? Do I have a motion in a second? Councilmember, okay. Councilmember Davis. It's getting late.
I don't think it's not in Vision 2040 though. I think it's the Menu Youth Garden.
Yeah,
Right?
Menu Youth Garden is running it, but Vision 2040 is who came up with the vision for
Okay.
it. And this came up about a year or two ago. And then Mr. Gramitz and I attended a meeting, and Councilmember Schwanta serves on that committee as a representative for the council. Additional discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Maskey,
Aye.
Schwantes,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Alvarado,
Aye.
Rasmus,
Aye.
Nauman,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That motion passes as well. That concludes our agenda. This was a very good meeting. Thank you for everybody for your attentiveness and having mercy with me as I tried to watch all the different people and turning your lights off and on. I think this goes to show that together we can work very well. We had some good spirited discussion, which is good for our community to hear and see. And so with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Osmus, I'll move.
Second.
Motion made by Osmus, seconded by Meskey. We are adjourned. Thank you all.